please follow instructions given by the crew member.
When I was growing up, the Hattersby didn't see it was great, it was a lot weaver, and then it crashed. Now you get anything and everything in Hattersby, which is good, so it's all spread out. So even if one side of it dips a wee bit,
we're blending lots of colours together to create that rich, vibrant colour that Hattersby is renowned for.
I get this being delivered to me from the mills, and the first thing I do is
Welcome back, I'm Kim.
I'm Del.
We are Going the Whole Hog and we hope you enjoyed our film from Lewis and Harris. This was the last of our 4-part CDs from the Outer Hebrides. If you've missed any of the other films, head on over to our channel where you can see more from BARRA, UIST, St Kilda and elsewhere.
And if you're planning on visiting Lewis and Harris yourself, we've got a complete travel guide over on the blog, goingthewholehog.com. So go and check that out. But for now, we'll tell you a little bit about our trip and share some practical tips for visiting the islands. Lewis and Harris is the most northern part of the Outer Hebrides. It's known as 2 islands, but it is in fact just one landmass, with Lewis to the north, Harris to the south, and some mountains in between. Stornoway is the largest town in the whole of the Outer Hebrides, and that's in Lewis.
It's the most mountainous island in the Outer Hebrides, and it's also got beautiful beaches along the west coast of Harris, clustered around Uig on Lewis, and also up on the northwest and northeast coast of Lewis as well. The southeast coast of Harris is this kind of Knochen landscape with lots of small hills or rocky hills and lochs and bays, and it's very reminiscent of the Assynt area on mainland Scotland. And then the north of Lewis is very much kind of flat, open landscape with lots of farming land.
You can get to Lewis and Harris by sea or air. There are 3 ferry options. You can go from Uig and Skye to Tarbert and Harris, and that takes about 1 hour and 40 minutes. Or you can go from Ullapool on the mainland to Stornoway on Lewis, and that's about 2.5 hours. Finally, you can take the inter-island ferry from Berneray to Leverborough, and that's about an hour. Or you can fly direct to Stornoway. You can go from Glasgow, Edinburgh or Inverness, and it takes approximately 1 hour to do that.
When you're on Lewis and Harris, the easiest way to get around is with your own vehicle. So you can take your car on the ferry, or you can hire one on the islands. There's a couple of different car hire companies based in Stornoway or in Tarbert. Cycling is also popular. There is the Hebridean Way route, which runs from BARRA all the way up through the Outer Hebrides and ends in the butt of Lewis, in the very northwest coast of Lewis. It is a lot hillier, especially around Harris though. I think actually when we cycled the Headway, that was the one bit where I cheated and I got in the van and I didn't cycle the hills.
There is one hilly section, but apart from that, it's relatively gentle.
But it's definitely hillier than on the other islands. There is a bus service, so if you're planning on doing it, getting around by public transport, it is possible, but it's quite a limited service. It doesn't run on Sundays. You can only get to so many destinations, and the timetables are quite restrictive as well. So it is possible, but it's not the most convenient way. If you are kind of short on time, or if you don't have your own vehicle for getting around, there's also some small group tours which are a really handy option. You can do a kind of 3-day tour from Inverness, or there's 5-day or 6-day tours that run from Edinburgh, and they're a great way of kind of seeing lots in a short amount of time and just having everything organised for you. Or there's a couple of really cool trips that we came across that are kayaking or hiking focused, and they're about a week long or something like that, which are pretty cool options too. So we'll pop some more info in our description down below, and there's also a lot more info on our blog post.
You could see the select highlights of Lewis and Harris in about 2 to 3 days, but if you want to get out and do some walks, see some places off the main road like Huisinis and Mangersta, then we reckon about a week is better. Obviously, the more time you have, the more you can see and do.
There's a wide variety of accommodation options on Lewis and Harris to suit all budgets, from camping to self-catering cottages, hotels, glamping pods, all that kind of thing. We have loads more info and a whole bunch of options detailed in our travel guide over on the website. And as we've mentioned before in our previous Outer Hebrides film from UIST, Sundays are very quiet in the islands, and I would say even more quiet on Lewis and Harris. So it's just one thing to be aware of. Make sure that you have stocked up at the supermarket for any groceries or anything that you need, ideally filled up on fuel as well if you are going to be there on a Sunday. I think almost every single shop in Lewis and Harris is closed on a Sunday. I could only find 2 that had limited opening hours to get some basic groceries, so definitely stock up in advance. Even the massive Tesco and the Co-ops in Stornoway are closed all day on a Sunday.
Yeah, if you start from the position that you won't be able to get anything at all, then you won't go far wrong. Our trip to Lewis and Harris was part of a 2.5-week camping road trip through the Outer Hebrides in June. We started in BARRA, took the ferry to UIST, and then after we took the ferry to Harris. We had about a week in Harris and Lewis, and up until that point the weather had been absolutely fantastic, but we knew it was going to turn and that camping, which is what we had been doing, would be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, so because of the weather, we didn't quite get to see and do all of the things that we had hoped to on Lewis and Harris, but we had a good crack at it anyway. And just now we'll share with you the kind of day-to-day stuff of what we got to and tell you a little bit more about the places that you saw in the film, some of the places that didn't make it into the film but that we went to. And if you do want the kind of full behind-the-scenes version of our trip, head over to our Instagram feed. We've got the stories saved in our Instagram highlights under Hebrides, so you can see how the whole trip went down there. But we'll run through some bits and some bobs just now with you.
Our trip to Harris and Lewis started when we arrived off the ferry at Leverborough on the southern tip of Harris. We took the Western Coastal Road, which is an amazing road that leads up past a succession of beautiful white sand beaches, and you can stop off at multiple locations and enjoy the views from the edge of the road. Yeah,
it's one of the best sort of scenic drives in the islands. So our first sort of main stop, apart from a couple of viewpoints along the way, was at Seilebost Beach, which is absolutely spectacular. It's this huge expanse of sand with sort of dunes behind it, and when the tide is going out, it's like just a sea of white sand with this beautiful turquoise water kind of snaking in through it, and the beach sort of creeps over and almost meets Luskentyre Beach on the opposite side. So we had a little wander around there, past all the jellyfish, and just enjoyed the beautiful weather. And then we drove sort of around the bay and headed to Luskentyre Beach, which I think has been voted like the most beautiful beach in, I don't know, the UK, Europe, who knows. It's a gorgeous one anyway. And,
it's a nice beach.
Yeah, it's sort of backed by dunes, and it's one of the best places in the islands for wild camping because there is a car park there, public toilets, and it's just a short walk down into the dunes where there's loads of good little spots for setting up your tent. And absolutely beautiful. It's no secret, you know, it's probably going to be one of the busiest beaches that you visit in the Outer Hebrides, but it's a big long one and there's plenty of space to kind of spread out, and it's nice and shallow, so it's good for paddleboarding, a little swim. So we got our tent set up and got a little cosy fire going up in the dunes. That was really good buy actually. We got that for like 15 quid or something at Go Outdoors, this little portable barbecue slash, well, we were just putting logs in it and having it as a little fire. So yeah, I went for a little evening swim, and then we cracked into the bottle of Negroni that we'd picked up at North UIST Distillery.
Which was quite delicious.
Very delicious. And my first taste, I was like, oh, what is that? And then by the second one, I was like, I've come around. That is delicious.
Yeah, very nice. And of course, we enjoyed a fantastic sunset there as well.
Yeah, that we knew that was going to be our last sort of good weather night, and it ended up being one of the best camps that we had in the islands. I'd say actually one of our most memorable wild camps ever, probably.
After spending a few hours at Luskentyre in the morning, we took the single track road to Huisinis. It was getting incredibly windy, but there was some fantastic viewpoints along the way, and it's a really, really great road, exciting to drive. We say exciting, some people might find it scary. Well, that's true.
Or challenging. But yeah, it's a nice road.
It's a very good road. When we got to Huisinis itself, it was extremely windy, so we took shelter in the new gateway building for a spot of lunch.
Yeah, it's a very welcome addition, I would say. It's got paid showers and picnic tables and loads of info boards inside telling you about the local area and the wildlife, and some huge like picture windows so you can just sit there and look at the waves rolling in on the gorgeous, gorgeous beach there. And it's the starting point for a really nice walk off around the coast. You can do like a loop trail, which is what we'd intended on doing. So we headed off along the coast and reached a beautiful beach at the end, and you're kind of looking over to Scarp Island. But by that point it started raining, so we had the waterproofs on, and we decided to sack the rest of the loop walk and just head back the same way. But yeah, that is a beautiful, beautiful walk, and if you're going to make the effort to drive all the way out to Huisinis, you might as well do that walk as well if you are able. And you can also stop off at the Eagle Observatory on the way, which could be quite a nice walk as well, but we didn't do it. We did see a couple of eagles though from that viewpoint. Didn't manage to capture that on camera. Don't know what kind of eagles they were because we didn't have any binoculars, but there was certainly...
The windy viewpoint.
Yeah, there were certainly a couple of giant birds of prey there, which was quite cool. So yeah, it was starting to turn, the weather, by the time we got back from that hike. And as much as we wanted to camp, a storm was rolling in, and we were in our friend's tent, which we'd borrowed, and we thought that camping in 75-kilometre winds was probably not the best idea. So
it's not a good idea anyway, regardless of whose tent you're in.
Especially not when you've borrowed the tent. You don't want to be handing it back all broken. So yeah, I had a quick look online and found a hostel in the Bays area of Harris called No5 Drinishader, which ended up being absolutely gorgeous. A lovely little cosy cottage. We stayed there 3 nights in the end just to kind of wait out the bad weather. Yeah, it was a lovely spot. Alison, who runs it, she lives next door, and it's like a cosy little living room and kitchen area with a log fire, or a peat fire rather, which heats the whole house, and we had like a private room upstairs, and yeah, it was a very good value, very nice place, and we were glad for some proper shelter for the 3 nights. So the next couple of days, we basically just sort of hung out in the hostel.
Had a bit of a rest.
Yeah, I found they had like a big coffee table book about St Kilda, so that was cool. We'd just been to St Kilda the week before or whatever, and I was just reading all about it, which was fascinating. Probably should have read that before we went, but you know.
Usual story. And so we used that place as a base to just drive around the area and see a bit more from the safety of the car, because the weather wasn't great. But we drove around the Golden Road, so called because it was so expensive to build.
Yeah.
Lots of nice little inlets and really, really interesting scenery. And what else did we do?
Yeah, the Harris Tweed exhibition
Tweed
was pretty much across the road from the hostel, and that's a good rainy day kind of activity. So we went in there to learn a bit more about Harris Tweed, which is obviously a very famous export from the islands. And yeah, the Golden Road, I'm sure would look even better in good weather, but it was quite atmospheric getting to drive around there with the kind of wind whipping off the water and all the lochs and stuff. So it's a very interesting landscape there, and combining the Golden Road with a loop up around the west coast, sort of covering the whole of South Harris, is a really beautiful drive. So with the worst of the weather behind us, we headed north again, took a little scenic detour off the main road down to Rhenigidale, which was a lovely drive, and I do wish we'd gotten out and done a couple of walks around there. One of them, which is the old Postman's Path, which looks really cool. It goes between Rhenigidale and was it Urga? I think so. There's like a parking area, and you can do that, and then you can make it into a loop and come back through like Luskentyre Lochs, which is part of the Hebridean Way walking route. They looked really cool, but we just didn't end up having time, or I suppose the inclination at that moment, to get out and walk them. But if we go back, we would love to do that.
We will definitely do that, yeah.
So that would be a couple of really good walks if you were going to be visiting that area. And then we carried on north up to Lewis and over to the Uig area, which is really, really beautiful. There's a lot of really nice beaches and coastline around there, and it's definitely worth including in your trip if you can spare the time, because it is a little bit of a drive sort of off the main road. One of our favourite bits was doing the loop roads around like Reef Beach and Neep and Cliff Beach. It always seems to be windy there. Both times we've been there, like 12 years apart, it's been absolutely howling wind when we've been like looking over Cliff Beach.
Yeah, at least this time it was sunny, so lots of good views. But no, really nice beaches and well worth visiting. And there was that great old boat as well.
Yeah, I don't know if that will still be there if you're visiting, but it was parked by a slipway. Parked. Would that even be what you say? The boat moored, berthed, sitting there in the water.
It was there.
Covered in mussels and barnacles.
Blistered barnacles.
But yeah, a beautiful little loop road, and definitely worth going. And if you want to spend longer there, there's a really perfectly positioned campsite at the back of Reef Beach, the beach bothies at Neep as well, which look amazing.
I just remember you got locked in the toilet.
Oh my god, yeah. Beware if you're going into the toilet at the campsite there. I was genuinely stuck in there. We thought we were going to have to phone the guy to come and rescue me, but
I was trying to find the person in the office, but they weren't there. And then
this screwdriver to get me out.
Yeah.
But luckily I managed to break free. So yeah, just beware if you're using the toilet there. And then we headed on past Uig Sands, which is like this enormous sort of sandy bay.
Sand flats.
Yeah, like sand flats, which is where they found the famous Lewis chessmen, which are like these 800-year-old ivory carved chess pieces that they think must be Viking in origin. Mm-hmm. So there's like a big wooden statue of one of them there.
We also took a little detour up to inland from the road to that loch.
Oh yeah. Like we were literally just driving past. It was like, there's a road. Shall we just take it and see where we end up? And it was quite a nice little scenic drive in the end.
Yeah.
We couldn't get very far. Where did it lead us to? A waterworks or something?
Just up to the loch, and there was another road that went up, but it didn't go anywhere. Yeah, there was industrial stuff.
It was like a waterworks or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a nice little side drive. And we based ourselves at Ardroyle campsite that night, which is on like Uig Sands, and that was a really good spot. It's got some hard standing pitches for camper vans, but you can also wild camp there in your tent. I say wild camp. There are facilities there. There's like toilets and paid showers and a sink where you can do your dishes and things like that. But it's kind of a basic campsite, and it's just sort of done on donation if you're camping in a tent. If you're staying in your camper van, you do need to book in advance. But that was a lovely spot, and we found one sheltered area to pitch the tent. I don't think we actually put that in the film in the end, but it was a nice little spot. And a good base for exploring the coastline around Mangersta, which was absolutely beautiful, a definite highlight for me. So there's all the sea stacks there, so you're driving along this road and then you just sort of have to park by the side of the road and walk across the hillside.
Just be careful on the cliff tops, because there's quite a bit of a drop if you go over there.
Yeah, and you'll come to this viewpoint of all these different sea stacks, which are really, really cool. And Mangersta Beach as well, which is just a short walk from a parking area, was very dramatic when we were there.
Yeah, waves crashing in, light changing constantly. It was nice.
And it would have been a really nice spot to camp as well if it had been less wild weather, but not in the weather that we had. But yeah, Mangersta Beach was lovely, and then there's a little settlement at Mangersta as well, and we parked up there and walked over to Mangersta Bothy, which is this handmade bothy by a couple that live in a farmhouse nearby. Croft house? A house anyway.
A house.
So they built this little bothy into the side of the cliffs at Mangersta, I think back in the 90s. And it is absolutely beautiful and such a work of art, and it's very well disguised actually. If you didn't know that it was there, you might not even notice it. You would just be like, oh amazing, some great coastal scenery. But yeah, it's tiny inside. There's just like sort of one sleeping platform bench, a little fire, and a couple of windows looking out over the cliffs. A really, really beautiful spot. So it was just about a 10 minute walk or so from the parking area, so it was an easy enough walk. But you can pop in there for like just to see it during the day, and you can sleep over if you wanted to stay the night, but you do need to contact them in advance. So you can contact the Linda Norgrove Foundation. So it's a foundation that was set up by I've forgotten their names, John and Lorna. So they are the couple that built the bothy, and they've set up a foundation in memory of their daughter Linda, and it supports women and children in Afghanistan. So if you're going to visit the bothy, do consider donating to the foundation, and if you want to stay overnight, you do need to get in touch with them via the website to see if it's available or not. But yeah, that was a really cool experience, and amazing views from there.
Leaving the Uig area behind, we went to see some well-known cultural sites in Lewis. First up was the 5,000-year-old Callanish Standing Stones, one of the most impressive standing stone circles in the whole of Scotland.
I would say the most impressive, actually.
I quite like Ring of Brodgar and Orkney.
I think the scale of Callanish is more impressive. It is like a standing stone circle, but then it's also got stones coming out like north, south, east and west as well, with like an avenue. It's like almost like a big cruciform. It's very impressive.
It probably is more complete in that sense, so yeah.
Yeah, so you can visit anytime. There's a car park nearby, and it's just open all the time and it's free to enter. And then we headed off to the Black House village at Gearrannan. I don't know if that's how you say it actually.
Gearrannan.
Gearrannan.
Something like that.
Yeah, it is a really beautiful collection of old black houses, which are like traditional dwellings which were used in like the 1800s and into the 1900s as well. So this village, the last residents left in the 70s. They moved to sort of more modern housing nearby, and it's been sort of preserved as the best example of a black house village in the islands, and it's a really beautiful coastal setting as well. So there's I don't know how many houses, but a number of them anyway, maybe like 10 of them or something like that. So they've got the traditional thatched roof and the thick stone walls, and some of them have been sort of turned into self-catering apartments, so you can actually go and stay in them. One of them is a hostel, which is a really cool location if you're looking for budget accommodation. And there is like a little museum one as well, and one of them's got a traditional what do you call those? Loom, a traditional like pedal loom where they would make Harris tweed. So you can go in there and see that. Yeah, that's
You said riding a bike, no?
No, riding a bike is this. Okay. Pedaling a loom is that.
Pedaling a loom, is that the technical term? I'm off to pedal my loom.
That's what I'm calling it anyway. So yes, the Black House Village, you can go and wander around at any time, but the cafe and the museum and whatnot is only open at certain times, so you can check out the opening times online before you visit, and it's a lovely little setting and well worth a visit. And then leaving there, we didn't actually put this in the film, but we headed over to South Lochs area to go and stay with a friend who lives in Crowmore. She's got a croft there, so we went to visit her and catch up. If you are interested in crofting, she has a very good Instagram profile called Imposter Crofter, and she shares a lot about her experience coming into crofting from scratch, not really knowing anything about it, and learning loads about it there. So that was an interesting night that we spent there, and then we did a little scenic drive around South Lochs area the next morning.
Yeah, we weren't really able to capture much of that because the rain was pouring down quite heavily, and every time we stopped the car and opened the window, it was coming in the window. So.
And leaving there, we headed up to the very northwest of Lewis. So we stopped in at a couple of beaches around Seilebost and Dalbeg, which were pretty nice, and then headed up to Eoropie Beach, which was really quite impressive. It had the most amazing looking play park behind it. If I was a kid still, I would have been absolutely delighted at that play park. So if you are travelling with a family, with kids, or you're a big kid yourself, you might want to go and check that out. Otherwise, just head to the beach to enjoy the dunes and the lovely sand there. And there's a nice coastal walk you can do all the way around to the Butt of Lewis Lighthouse. It was a bit too windy and rainy for us to bother doing that day, but had it been nice weather, that would have been very nice. And yeah, it's lovely scenery around there and well worth a stop. And while you're in the area, do go and see the Butt of Lewis Lighthouse. And Ness Harbour is up there as well, Port of Ness. So there's a lovely little harbour and a beach there. And I think we wanted to go and get some food at the breakwater, but it was totally jumping. Yeah, we couldn't get a table. So instead we...
Stopped for a half pint?
Oh yeah. Well, you were driving. You had a wee ginger beer. I had a wee half pint of Guinness at, what was that? The barn, the Cross Inn or something?
Maybe.
It was a nice
began with a C.
pub.
I do remember.
I think it was the Cross Inn. Anyway, okay. had a wee half pint, and then headed over to what for me turned out to be one of my favourite camp spots on the island, Garry Beach, which is next to something called the Bridge to Nowhere. There was basically a road that they started building, trying to go from like Tolsta area up to Ness along the northeast coast of Lewis. And they built this bridge, and then they just gave up on the road, so it's literally a bridge to nowhere.
It's a lot less flat along that area, a lot more cliffs, I think, so
yeah, it would have been challenging and expensive to build.
Expensive,
yeah. So that is the final part of the Hebridean Way walking route, but yeah, it's also just a really nice place to go and visit. Kind of bracken covered hillsides. The landscape is really quite different to anywhere else in the island, and the beach itself is covered in these like big stacks, which when the tide is in, they're underwater, and when the tide goes out, it's just these stacks sticking out of the beach. And we parked up nearby and took our tent down and camped there, and it got to about 11 o'clock at night until the tide had gone out, so we went for a little walk along the beach, and I was so excited to find that there's like a cave tunnel almost, like I couldn't believe it. I was super excited. The rain had started coming on, and yeah, it was like 11 o'clock at night. I was very tired, but even then it was like this magical moment where I just couldn't believe that we just stumbled upon this tunnel going through the cave. It was so cool. Yeah, so definitely head up to visit Garry Beach. It was my favourite on the east coast, the northeast coast, and one of my favourites in the islands. And make sure that you go when the tide is going out, so that you can explore like in the cave tunnels and see all the stacks and stuff like that. And if you are camping, it's a great spot for camping. There's a nice loch behind with tons of geese. You can park nearby, and there's some toilets at the nearby beach. Just sort of south of the headland, a big long stretch of beach, which is also really nice, but I just liked the cool geological features at Garry Beach. I thought it was very nice.
Yeah, there were lots of areas to put your tent, so plenty of space to spread out, and there were camper vans up in the car park as well, so plenty of opportunities if you want to spend the night.
Yeah. And that was it. We just headed back down to Stornoway and took the lunchtime ferry over to Eoropie. It's a nice town actually, Stornoway. We didn't spend any time in it this time round because we've already been there like 2 or 3 times before, and so we didn't feel the need to spend any more time there this time. But yeah, if you are visiting, it is worth spending a night or 2 there. And yeah, the ferry is a modern ferry. It's the newest ferry serving the islands. And make sure that you head right to the top floor to the observation deck where there's just the best views. Absolutely amazing. I was like remembering this observation deck.
But remember to go to the right end of the boat, which Kim did not do.
I was like, Del, we've got to rush there and get the amazing seats. Like, I was remembering this fantastic observation deck from the last time, and then we got up there and sat there, and then like half an hour later he goes off for a wander and he comes back and he's like, we're in the wrong observation deck, and I was like,
I think it was also when it started moving.
And like, why are we facing that way?
Why are we not facing that way?
Yeah, so the front observation deck on the very top floor. Head there, try and grab yourself some seats.
Which when you get on, it will be the end that's facing towards Stornoway, not the end that's facing out, because it kind of reverses out and then heads for the open water.
Don't forget to get your fish and chips as well. Absolutely banging fish and chips on the Callanish ferry. Highly recommended. And that was it. Our journey through the Western Isles was over, and it had been a cracker of a trip.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the film and indeed the entire Outer Hebrides series. Please like, leave a comment and subscribe if you haven't already. It really means a lot and goes a long way for our channel.
And if you're planning a trip to the Outer Hebrides yourself, don't forget to head over to our website, goingthewholehog.com, where we have travel guides for each of the islands, so Lewis and Harris, one for UIST, one for BARRA and VATERSAY, and also for St Kilda. These detailed travel guides have loads of information about our favourite things to see and do on the islands, plus tips for how to get there, the best places to eat, loads of different accommodation options, and so on. Basically everything that you need to know to plan the perfect trip to the islands. A very special thank you to each of our patrons. Your monthly pledges are helping us to continue creating these films, continue writing our detailed guides over on our blog, and we very much appreciate it. And if you're watching this thinking, I really like what they do, I enjoy their work and I'm getting value from it, then we would love it if you would go and check out our Patreon page and consider joining our Patreon community as well. It is one of the best ways that you can support us to continue doing what we do.
Our Outer Hebrides series has come to an end, but we will have more Scotland films to share with you very soon. Next up is going to be our trip along the Moray Coast Trail, which we did in August.
And we are currently planning a trip to Skye, which is probably going to be very wet and windy, so we'll see how that goes. But hopefully we will have a film from the Isle of Skye to share with you before the end of the year. And we do have a couple of big outstanding projects, 2 series of films from Armenia and from Oman as well. So we're hoping we can get round to that this winter, and we'll have lots of exciting we need to. So we'll have lots of exciting films to share with you from Scotland and beyond on our channel, and over on the blog there'll be various new guides. So subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you're notified whenever a new film is released, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Cheerio.
Thanks.